The low murmur of refined conversation and the gentle clink of silverware painted the atmosphere in the upscale restaurant where Amal and I sat that evening. The golden lighting poured softly over polished mahogany tables. A piano played unobtrusively in the background. Everything curated for an evening of elegance. But beneath the luxury, something soured. Amal, seated across from me in a scarlet gown that clung to her figure with calculated grace, was a portrait of poise. Her hair was styled perfection, her every movement refined. And yet, her eyes were distant, vacant in a way I could no longer ignore. This dinner, meant to revive a relationship slowly fraying at the seams, felt more like a last supper than a celebration of love. I'd noticed the signs for months now. Late hours at her law firm, guarded text messages, half-hearted kisses goodbye. I'd tried to chalk it up to stress, told myself the foundation of our marriage was too solid to shake. But that illusion shattered the moment a tall, broad-shouldered man with icy blue eyes and an arrogant gait strode up to our table, wearing a smirk like a badge of conquest. His tailored suit fit him too well, his presence too bold, too familiar. He didn't glance at me. His eyes locked onto Amal with an insolence that made the air thicken. "Amal," he said smoothly, as if we were in the middle of some reunion rather than a romantic dinner. "Didn't expect to see you here." Amal froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Her eyes flitted nervously between us before she answered, barely above a whisper. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" "Just enjoying the city," he said, his smirk deepening. And then, in a moment so surreal it felt like a fevered dream, he reached across the table and took her hand, my wife's hand, and said with sickening confidence, "Why stay with this weakling? Let's dance first, and then I'll show you what a real man can do." The room fell into a heavy silence, the music thinning into a distant echo. Diners turned, jaws slack, eyes glued to the unfolding spectacle. Amal tried to pull away, panic creeping into her features. But Lucas held firm, basking in his audacity. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against a marble floor. My voice came out low, controlled, each syllable laced with warning. "You have 3 seconds to let her go." Lucas turned to me, amused. "And if I don't?" What followed didn't need words. With a practiced twist, I seized his wrist and applied pressure until the sickening sound of bone fracturing cut through the silence like a thunderclap. Lucas screamed and dropped to the ground, clutching his hand in agony. Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Amal stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief and something else, shame, perhaps. I crouched beside Lucas, my voice quiet and surgical. "This is just the beginning," I said. "You made a mistake tonight, and I promise you'll regret it." He tried to speak through clenched teeth, but I was already rising. I turned to Amal. "Let him go." She hesitated, caught in the surreal spiral of what had just occurred. "Now," I said, and the authority in my voice left no room for disobedience. She stood slowly and followed me out, her heels striking the floor like distant gunfire. The drive home was cloaked in silence, thick and oppressive. Amal sat stiffly, her gaze fixed on her lap. When we pulled into garage, I killed the engine and faced her. "Talk," I said sharply. She flinched. "Magnus, I don't know what you want me to say. I want the truth. Who is he? How long has this been going on?" Tears shimmered in her eyes, but my well of sympathy had long since dried. She murmured, "It's complicated." "Let me simplify it for you," I said coldly. "Either you tell me everything now, or I find out myself. And trust me, you won't like how that ends." Her shoulders slumped, the defiance draining out of her. 6 months, she whispered. "It started 6 months ago." Even knowing in my gut what she would say, the confirmation hit harder than expected. I inhaled slowly, restraining the fury I felt boiling beneath the surface. What exactly was tonight supposed to be? I asked. Some kind of humiliation? A test? I didn't know he'd be there. Magnus. I swear. Stop. I cut in. The way you looked at him, you knew. Her sobs filled the cabin of the car as I stared blankly ahead, already charting my course forward. I needed more than explanations. I needed a reckoning. By the following morning, the gears were already turning. From my office high above Geneva, I stared out over the skyline with grim resolve. The betrayal ran deep, but I wouldn't drown in it. I would rise from it. And they, Amal and Lucas, would not walk away untouched. Lucas was easy to dig into. A few calls, some well-placed favors from friends in the financial world, and his spotless image began to corrode. His online persona, filled with yachts, designer suits, and glamorous women, was a facade. Beneath it, crumbling businesses, unpaid loans, fraud allegations. I hired an investigator to connect the dots. The findings were more damning than I expected. Meanwhile, I quietly began building a case against them all. Every text, every email, every discreet meetup, they all went into a secure folder. I didn't want revenge, I wanted leverage. If she tried to fight me in the divorce, she'd regret it. Then came the final strike. I arranged for Lucas to receive a last-minute invite to an elite charity gala, one that Amal had always begged me to attend with her. At the same time, I leaked Lucas's financial crimes to a journalist with a penchant for high-profile scandals. By the time the gala was in full swing, his crimes were splashed across every digital screen and whispering lip. Bank fraud, identity manipulation, embezzlement, all laid bare for Switzerland's elite to see. Lucas's accounts were frozen within days. He fled Geneva, disgraced, abandoned even by those who once called him a friend. Amal's fall was equally brutal. Overnight, she became a pariah. Friends cut ties. Her family, mortified, refused to be seen with her. The invitations that once overflowed now stopped completely. When we finally met in court, Amal looked nothing like the poised woman from that night in the restaurant. She was pale, eyes hollow, shoulders slouched in defeat. She approached hesitantly after the proceedings, her voice barely audible. Magnus, I know I hurt you, but was this really necessary? I met her eyes, unflinching. You made your choices, and choices have consequences. She nodded, silent tears slipping down her cheeks, and walked away without another word. Months passed. The house we once shared was gone, sold, cleansed of its ghosts. I moved into a sleek new space, airy and modern, without shadows in the corners. I threw myself into my work, rebuilding with a quiet ferocity. And then one night, at another charity event, this time one I chose to attend, I met someone. She approached me gently, her presence calm, not flashy. "Mr. Adler," she said, offering her hand. "I'm Isabel Forer. I've followed your work for years." We talked for hours. No games, no masks, just intelligence, kindness, a refreshing sincerity that felt almost foreign after everything I'd endured. That night, I stood on my balcony, a glass of wine in hand, gazing over the city that had witnessed my unraveling and my rebirth. The past no longer held power over me. It had sharpened me, molded me, burned away illusions and left behind something unbreakable. Pain forges us, strength defines us, and betrayal, though it wounds deeply, can also be the very force that frees us.